All right, so today we're going to keep working on talking about things that are a little bit outside of the box, and we're going to talk about a game building engine called Twine. Last semester, I had probably about 5 or 6 students end up turning in a repurposing project using Twine to build an interactive game around their topic. So some people find it a lot of fun to play with. So let's take a look at what it is and how it works. So to begin with, Twine is very, very, very stripped down, super simple way to build your own interactive text-based games. You don't really need to know how to code. You do have to actually code a little bit, but the coding is so intuitive. It may be a little frustrating, but it's mostly going to be super easy to make. Like, to give you an idea, I had students making games within probably about 30 minutes of time spent in class doing it. So it's a super simple game. Don't need to know much coding to do it. And it allows you to do things like make a text-based choose your own adventure game. Everything you do in the Twine engine, which is a little website where you'll make changes. Everything you do there will get saved as an HTML file. So it's all an HTML-based game, which means that you'll make a game that people can play in their web browser. And then you make it through this website, twinery.org, which we'll take a look at. And then you export the game, and it exports a HTML file, which you save offline. You can send other people that file, or if you have a website, host it yourself, and then people can play your game by coming to your website. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like. Okay, so this is a game that a dad made with his 2-year-old. I don't know how involved the 2-year-old was. I can't imagine too much, but this is the kind of thing you could make with Twine. So we see here, astounding stories of interplanetary adventure. A spaceship has landed in your backyard. And then you go ahead and click this, and it turns into the first text-based slide of this game. Today is a normal day, just like any other day, or so you think. It's pretty big drama here. Oh, a spaceship lands in your backyard. So here the game gives you an option. You can either run away or, oh, cool, let's look at it. Obviously, we're not cowards. We're going to look at the spaceship. So let's go take a look. Spaceships are cool. What could possibly go wrong? You approach, and the door opens, and oh my gosh, stormtroopers come out. So you can kind of see how this kind of game engine works. I'm going to rewind a couple of slides here. Basically, it's click through. So you click something, you get to the next slide in the sequence. Based on what you click in that, you get taken to another thing, and then you're able to add things like images, GIFs, or whatever that are going to kind of help you tell a story. You're ended. Let's take the other fork in this road. It ends up turning you sort of the same route where you get stormtroopers coming in. You run. They chase after you. And there's some video. Anyway, so you kind of see how the game gets built. It's sort of like almost like a little booklet or a slide deck in some way of different things, and then you can give the reader or the player of the game different options. Do A, do B, do C, and depending on what they choose, you put them into kind of another path in the story. So this is super simple. We'll look at another one really quickly here. This one is called Castle Doomstone. That's really small. Let me zoom in. And it's sort of like a parody on those old games that you guys are too young for. These kind of text-based games like Zork, that sort of thing. But, you go to this castle, Castle Doomstone. The dragon lives here. All right, let's enter the castle. Let's enter the main keep. Let's enter the dungeons. That sounds spooky. Let's go back to the entryway. You get the idea. You can kind of click through a different story and wander around a house or do that kind of thing. So I had students use Twinery to make some really interesting games. One student was doing a project on homelessness in Seattle, and so she made a kind of interactive game based on where you could go to find resources. Go here and get this, go there, you get that kind of thing. And so it was a balance of providing information to the player of the game about the situation of homelessness in Seattle, but also pointing them towards resources and helping them figure out how to navigate that situation in Seattle. So people have used Twine to do all kinds of really interesting kind of crossover things, like my student there. And we'll look at one more. This is a game I built. So you can see I added some like sound effects. And what I did was I just went to I just searched for like a Mega Man soundtrack and sound effects and stuff like that. And then I just kind of added those, embedded those to each of these pages that I made for my thing about biking to work. So, let's just say we're late for work. Okay, I said, what bike do you want to choose? This old Peugeot bike. Oh, it looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Yeah. Ride. And then, yeah, unfortunately, riding to work is super stressful because you're like Joseph Gordon-Levitt here, and we'll have this cars give you a close call here. Anyway, the game that I built here again is like super simple, same sort of thing. But one of the things I kind of did to spice it up is add a few sound effects, and I'll give you guys a couple like tips of how to do some stuff like that if this is something that you're interested in for your final project. But let's get back to thinking about how Twine works behind the scenes. Okay, so if you go to the website for Twine, which is twinery.org, you can see here on the top, you'll come to a homepage like this, looks like a cork board. And what you can do is just click here where it says use it online. It's small and it's right below where it says download. And if you do that, you get taken to a page that is kind of like this. It has graph paper. Yours will be blank. But this is what my game, the bike game that I built, looks like behind the scenes. So basically what you do is you create a card, as you can see here, like a card for each of the different pages, slides in your game. And so I started with that first card of the bike GIF, the little like pixelated bike GIF, and the Mega Man sound. And then after you press start, it goes to the second card, which is you wake up, you want to, go get coffee, or you're running late. We clicked that we're running late. So then the player of the game gets put down a path, as you can see here, the late for work path. And we choose, we ride that Peugeot bicycle, and then eventually it gets to that one where it shows the GIF of Joseph Gordon-Levitt almost getting hit by a car. But had we chose other paths, you could see that if you're hungry, or if you're smelling when you take a shower, if you're tired, etc., you can kind of route the reader through these different parts of the story, eventually getting them to come to whatever final conclusion or different conclusions that you might have for the game. So it's a really simple engine for building a game. And I'm going to point you guys towards some like how-to videos, which I could make a how-to video, but there's plenty of really good ones on YouTube, and they're pretty simple. But let's look at a couple things about how this actually looks when you make like a card and add sound effects or add an image, that kind of thing. Okay, so that first slide that I made in the game, remember it looks like this, but what it looks like behind the scenes, you can see, is just this tiny little bit of code. And so if you just look at these 3 different lines of code, you see the first one, I want to put an image on there. So I put this code for, like, as you can see, img source equals, and then I put a link to that GIF of the that bicycle, pixelated bicycle. And then, so then you see, so you've got a picture of the bicycle up top here, and then you've got below that, that's just that text for press start. As you can see, it's super simple. I centered it and put this words press start in double brackets. We're going to talk about that in a sec. And then I had a little bit of code here that goes and references the music that's playing. So if you don't know any HTML code, you actually don't even need to add any of this stuff like images or music, though it is cool to have that kind of stuff. If you were just type in text, you would actually get text that would appear on the code. So let's take a look at like an even simpler version of what this looks like. So the second card, as you can see down here, I have written like, you wake up, are you hungry, smelly, tired, late for work, really hungry? And so to make a card that says that in Twine, you would just create one and then have it say, "You wake up, are you?" And then in brackets, you put anything that you want to like link it to. So if I'm thinking like, okay, I've got a story, like you come to a path, you can either go left or right. I would say just type normally in like the little card, you come to a path, you can either go and then put in brackets left, close those brackets, or new brackets right. And by doing so, it tells Twine that like those are the two options for the person in your game, and they can click on either one of those and get put down either end of that path. So in mine, it's about waking up and biking to work, whatever. So I have these different options: hungry, smelly, tired, late for work, really hungry, that kind of thing. And then at the end, obviously, again, I put some music. So I have this little code for music. But what happens when you actually type in bracket, bracket, hungry, bracket, bracket, is that Twine will automatically create a card that's the next step in your path, the next step in your game. So just by typing that in, you'll get like a new card created called Hungry, and then you'll just fill that in with the same information. This may sound a little, or you'll fill that in with whatever you want the next step in your game to be. This may sound a little like confusing, but once you actually start doing it, it's simple, super simple. And so I'm going to have everybody like play around with Twine and just make something that's a couple of slides long and clicking through, just to get a handle on how something like this works. But here are a couple things that may help you guys. So first, anytime you want to link to something into another card in your Twine game, you just put two brackets and then the name of the card that you're linking to. So in the case here, the name of this card is Hungry. So anytime I would want to link to that in the game, I would just put inside the code of any card, bracket, bracket, Hungry. And that would automatically link to that same card. To add an image, you would add something, text like this. I'm going to drop in all of these little bits of code so you guys can play around with it. But if you've never done anything like this, that's like has some HTML in it, it's super simple. You can kind of like read it just like you would any sentence, but it's just saying to center this, what's inside these carrots here, and then at the end of it, there's a stop centering sign, and then it has in the middle here what you want to center. And so in this case, it's an image, and then here's the source for the image, and then you put quotes, and then a link to the actual image, like that you would find on the on a page, but not the page that the image is on, but actually like the file for the image. You can see how it has .jpg at the end of it there. And the same thing is true for audio. You just put audio source and then a link to a page that has like the MP3 that you want to link it to. And then in this case, I put like the code autoplay loops that just starts playing right away. Similarly, if you want to add a GIF to your thing, you can usually just go to like one of these websites like Jiffy. I've got a thing here. And there's usually an option for, you can like copy a link to it, or you can copy what's called like embed code. And so here you just click the option for embed code, and actually will give you this little bit of code you can just copy and paste and drop in. And that will look like this, be like an iframe to open up a GIF inside your slide for Twine. So what does this all mean for you guys? So you can easily imagine how you might start if you wanted to make a game for your topic, to do something like what I did. So let's just say I know a couple folks are working on CRISPR, that gene editing virus, if I've got all that right. You can imagine something like a game about researching CRISPR. And so the first card that you have is like, something about welcome to the laboratory, blah, 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 blah. You can either use this kind of CRISPR or this kind of CRISPR, and then you click an option, and like, you're running into a problem where the bioethics committee is saying this. Do you either do X or Y? And depending on which one you do, you either get routed down on the left over here to one option, or down here to another option, something like that. And that's, that's a really simple way of thinking about, but you can start to imagine how you might build a game. So let's take a look at what it would look like to build a game from scratch really, really quickly. Okay, so I'm here on my Twine like account or whatever, and there's my you can see my story over here on the left here. This bike crash story, and but let's make a new one. So I'm just gonna click plus story here, this green button on the right, and we're gonna come up with something. So let's just call it writing 2010. Okay, so now we start automatically with one passage or one card. That's going to be the thing that we start off with. So let's start this off. So we'll just call it something like class begins. So let's say, oh no, class begins with a top hat, and you forgot your laptop. Do you? And now we're going to present to the player of the game with a couple options. So again, if you remember, okay, think back to what I did with the card that was hungry. So I'm like, okay, I want to present the reader with options. So I'm going to write in a little thing here that's going to make an option and create a new card for that option, which is, again, super simple. It's just you have these double brackets. And so say, do you install the app on your phone? And then you close that with double brackets. Do you run to the library and check out a laptop? Now, this is a really fun story, guys. But yeah, close the brackets again. Now we're gonna have two options, and let's add a third one. Wake up from this nightmare because school is canceled and everyone actually has a virus. Okay, so we've made this. Now just click out of it and see what happens. Now we have three cards that have already been made for those three options. So if we were to start editing this, like install the app on your phone, you can start going, good thinking. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi at school is terrible. You can't get a steady connection, and you risk missing the questions. So you, and then here, if we want to say add a link to one of those other things, then let's actually go back here and we'll just double check what oh yeah, that's what it is. It's called go run to the library and check out a laptop. So watch what happens now. We put double brackets and then add the title of the other card, run to the library and check out a laptop. You see now in the story, it actually creates this arrow here. It creates a link between these two cards. And if we were to look at what this looks like in the game, we would see that we could actually now click a link on this card that would link to this card. So let's play this game and see what it looks like. So if you are playing this, and I know this is a YouTube video, so sometimes it's hard to see exactly what I'm clicking, but if you were to just go down to the bottom right and click play, pretty self-explanatory, a game will pop up and we'll get to see the fruits of our labor. So this is, again, that first card that we wrote called class begins, and it says, oh no, class begins with top hat and you forgot your laptop. Do you install the app on your phone? Sounds great. Oh, good thinking. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi is terrible. Oh, then we'll go to run to the library and click the laptop. And we haven't written this next slide yet, so there's nothing on it, but you can see how quickly we put together those couple of cards. So the last thing I want to share with you guys is how to save your file, and it's really easy, but it's a little bit tricky. Just conceptualize what's going on. So basically, this Twine is like an HTML editor, so it does all the work for you behind the scenes to write the code to make this HTML game. So you save it as an HTML file. So If you go down here where it says Writing 2020 or Writing 2010 and click on the triangle there, you'll see that there you have a couple options, and then one is to publish to file. So if you click that, it'll just download the game as, in this case, the file called writing2010.html. And that is a file that if you were to put that on your website or just open the file with your browser, will be a game to will be the version of the game to play. So if you work on a Twine game for your final project, or when you want to turn in what you're doing, that's what you want to do with to send me a version of your game. You want to actually download that file, then attach that file to an email, send it to me, or post it on Canvas, and that will be like how you actually send someone a version of your game. Do not send someone the link that is in your browser, because as you'll see here, if we were to zoom in, the link says something like file : //user / Max Schleicher, etc. So it's just a link. It's like the link to where the file is on your computer. And if you send me that link, I don't have your computer, so it won't work for me. You need to actually go and send the person the actual HTML file that you downloaded from Twine, which again, you can get to really simply by going to the bottom where it says the name of your game, Writing 2010, clicking on the triangle, and then clicking to download by clicking on Publish to File, and that will do everything for you. Last quick note, I think Twine works best on Chrome. I've had some students occasionally run into problems exporting stuff with Safari. Nothing's broken, but it gets wonky. So if you've got Chrome, it'll make things a little bit easier. All right, hope you guys have some fun playing around with Twine.